passing day, the rashes turned into boils. Big, red, painful boils that covered every inch of Angel's delicate skin. Ngozi and Anthony bought every medicine they could find. They changed hospitals, changed doctors, prayed, fasted. In time, they dedicated an entire room in their house just to store Angel's used medication boxes. The room was full to the brim with empty cartons from creams to injections to oral drugs. Angel grew up with medicine as her second food. But one thing remained. She never smiled. Not once. Her eyes always looked tired. Her face always wore sadness. Even as she grew into a teenager, the boils still remained. She covered herself every time she stepped out long sleeves, long skirts, gloves, turtlenecks. Her clothes became her armor. And her makeup? A thick layer of foundation to hide the scars on her face. She lived like this for years. Until one day, a different invitation came. It was the annual Church Youth Week celebration. Youths from different branches were gathering for 1 week, a retreat filled with prayers, fun, worship, and activities. Angel didn't want to go. "Mummy, I can't," she said. "What if they see my skin? What if they avoid me? I can't face that shame." But Ngozi gently held her hand and said, "My daughter, you've been hiding all your life. You serve a living God. Go and participate in His house. Who knows, that might be where your healing will come from." Angel paused. She looked at her mother's teary eyes and said, "Okay, I'll go." She packed a few things and headed off. The church was lively. The youths were excited. Everyone smiled, laughed, sang, except Angel, who stayed quiet and hidden in her oversized hoodie. At night, they were all assigned dormitories. The other girls chatted and prepared for bed. But Angel couldn't undress in front of anyone. She waited, until everyone had gone out the next morning. Then quietly, she unzipped her hoodie, tied a towel, and hurried toward the bathroom. But just as she stepped into the hallway, the evening breeze in the village of Enugu was gentle that Sunday like the whisper of an angel passing by. But no one knew it was a breeze carrying death. Ngozi's mother, Chioma, was the light of the village. Her laughter was music at every gathering. Her beauty, the envy of both maidens and married women. Her heart, pure gold. If you were hungry, Chioma fed you. If you were sad, she would sit with you, even if it meant staying up all night. When she got pregnant with Ngozi, it was as though the sun had given birth to its own daughter. Elders blessed her, women touched her belly for good luck, and children danced around her compound. But tragedy has a way of creeping in uninvited. That Sunday evening, Chioma went into labor. Her husband, Okoro, had gone deep into the bush to tap fresh palm wine. Everyone was waiting for the joyous cry of a newborn. What they got instead was silence, then wailing. Chioma was gone, dead during childbirth. When Okoro returned, he saw a crowd in front of his compound. He smiled, thinking the baby had arrived, until he saw his wife's lifeless body wrapped in white cloth. He dropped his keg of palm wine and screamed, "Chioma!" The earth beneath him may as well have opened. He fell to the ground, rolling in the red soil, pounding his fists into it. He refused to eat. He sat by her grave every night for a week. Even the strongest men in Enugu wept for him. The only reason he survived was because of the small baby crying in the next room, Ngozi. "Okoro," the elder said, "we know your heart is broken, but that child needs a mother. Let us find you a good woman." For months, Okoro refused. But watching little Ngozi grow weak, her tiny body crying for care her father couldn't give, he gave in. 3 months later, he married Oluchi. In the beginning, Oluchi was a savior. She bathed Ngozi, fed her, carried her on her back, sang lullabies at night. Everyone praised her. "She's a good woman," they said. "Chioma will be proud from the other side." But Oluchi's kindness was a mask. Once she gave birth to her own daughter, everything changed. She began to resent Ngozi's beauty too much like her late mother. She hated how villagers praised the child. "She's Chioma's twin," they'd say. That praise felt like a knife in Oluchi's chest. Bit by bit, her love turned to jealousy. And jealousy turned to cruelty. She began to maltreat Ngozi in secret. She'd send her to the stream while her own daughter stayed back to eat. She'd make her sweep the entire compound, fetch firewood barefoot, and eat last sometimes nothing at all. Okoro was blind to it all. Every time he asked, Oluchi would say, "Ah, no, she's like my own daughter. I can never treat her differently." Ngozi endured it all quietly, bitterly, but her young heart began to grow cold. She learned how to smile through pain, how to cry without tears. She grew into a woman with scars no one could see. Even with all the bitterness Ngozi faced under Madame Oluchi's roof, her light never dimmed. She stood out like a glowing moon among dull stars. Her skin glistened like palm oil under morning sun, her voice calm and kind like a village flute at dusk. She was respectful, hard-working, and radiantly beautiful, far more than her stepsister Precious, who often walked around with powdered face and head tie, trying to get attention. Even villagers began to whisper, "That girl Ngozi, she's the true daughter of Okoro. She dey try. Despite everything, she still dey smile." Their words were like pepper to Madame Oluchi's jealous heart. She watched each passing day as her husband Okoro gave special attention to Ngozi. And so the hatred grew like weeds in a neglected farm. One afternoon, as the sun melted over the village rooftops, Oluchi turned to her daughter Precious. "Can't you see what's happening? That girl is slowly taking everything from you. Your father's love, the villagers' praise. Do you want to become invisible in your own home?" Precious, still licking the sugar from her mango, looked up and nodded slowly. That night, they began plotting. Later that week, Ngozi and Oluchi were alone in the kitchen, stirring a steaming pot of egusi soup. Precious had dozed off in the room. Ngozi, her voice soft and trembling, finally asked the question that had haunted her for years. "Mama, why do you treat me with so much hate? I know I've not wronged you." Oluchi burst out laughing, a hard, bitter laugh. "Treat you with hate?" she said mockingly. "It's because you're not my daughter. Precious is mine just, as her name implies." Ngozi froze. The steam from the pot no longer burned as much as those words did. "And what am I?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Oluchi turned, her face now twisted in scorn, and with a loud hiss she replied, "You are the daughter of a dead woman. Your mother is cold in the grave, buried under the big tree in your father's farm by the riverbank. That's where she belongs. That's where you should be." Ngozi staggered back, dazed, her vision blurred. Suddenly, slap! Oluchi landed a hot slap on her face. That was the final straw. Ngozi dropped the cooking spoon, turned, and ran out of the kitchen like a hunted antelope. She didn't even know where she was going. Her legs moved faster than her thoughts. Past the village square, past Uncle Nduka's shrine, past the palm trees, until she reached the river. There, under the giant mango tree by the stream, she collapsed in tears. Why me? Why was I born to suffer? She cried into the earth. Then she felt a presence. A gentle voice asked, "Young lady, why are you here all alone?" Ngozi looked up and froze. He was tall, chocolate-skinned, with sharp, princely features. His voice was calm like river water. His outfit glimmered in the fading sun. It was Prince Ebuka, the only son of King Omenka. He had returned to the village weeks ago under pressure from the royal council to choose a bride, yet no maiden had caught his attention until now. Without waiting for a reply, he bent gently and wiped Ngozi's tears with a soft white handkerchief. She tried to speak, but her lips quivered. The pain in her chest made it hard to breathe, let alone talk. He didn't push her. "Let me walk you home," he said. And like that, they both walked together her with a shattered heart, him with a rising curiosity. At the compound, Oluchi and Precious were outside, devouring a large bowl of fufu and ogbono soup when they spotted them. Their jaws dropped. Oluchi stood up quickly and forced a smile. "My prince, where did you find her? We've been so worried." Precious sprang up and rushed to embrace Ngozi, her voice full of lies. "Sister, why do you always do this to us? Running off because of a man again?" Ngozi said nothing. Her soul was numb. Ebuka narrowed his eyes at the drama. He wasn't fooled. "Thank you for your concern," he said coldly, "but please take good care of your children." Oluchi smiled, still trying to push Precious forward. "My prince, please, sit a while. Let Precious entertain you." Ebuka shook his head. "No, Ma, perhaps another time." With that, he turned and walked away, never even glancing at Precious. Oluchi and her daughter stood there, their smiles cracking, their plans slowly crumbling. But they were not done. The real storm was only beginning. The next morning, as the sun stretched across the skies of Enuguku, Ngozi was sent to the village river with a giant clay pot. But instead of heading straight to the stream, her heart led her elsewhere to her mother's grave, beneath the old mango tree in her father's farm. There she sat quietly and cried. Her tears soaked the ground like rain. She had questions that only the dead might understand. But fate was not done with her yet. "Young lady, you again?" It was Prince Ebuka, his royal sandals crunching softly against the leaves. He had come to the hill nearby, his favourite spot to watch the sunset and think. "Why do you always come here to cry?" he asked gently. "Whatever it is, take it easy on yourself. Be strong. Pray. Only God can heal wounds like yours." Ngozi wiped her eyes, nodded silently, and stood to lift her water pot. "Let me help," Prince Ebuka said kindly. He called one of his guards to fetch the water and take it to Mr. Okoro's compound, while he and Ngozi remained behind to talk. As they sat beneath the tree, something began to blossom, not just friendship, but a tender connection. They laughed a little and shared stories like old friends. But trouble had already started brewing in the hearts of Oluchi and Precious. They stood at their window, staring as the palace guard arrived with a pot of water. Oluchi's chest tightened. "Can you see what's happening, Precious?" she hissed. "Your half-sister is now walking with royalty, and you are here wasting away. She must not marry the prince. I swear it with everything inside me." And so they began to plan. A few days later, Ngozi and Prince Ibuka had grown closer. He often walked her home, their bond becoming deeper each passing day. But jealousy burns like wildfire. One evening, Precious came rushing into their compound, her eyes glowing with excitement. "Mama, Mama, I have news!" she shouted from the gate. She dragged Oluchi into her room and whispered, "I heard the prince is only allowed to marry an innocent woman, you know, one who has never known a man." Then she broke into wild laughter. "That means Ngozi can never marry him." Oluchi looked at her daughter from head to toe, then shook her head slowly and hissed, "You think everyone is like you, running after men since you were 12? That girl's purity is still intact. This battle, she's already winning it." Precious's face tightened in shame, but her wicked mind quickly found another route. "Then we'll have to take it from her by force," she whispered. "If she's not pure, she can't marry the prince." And so the evil plan was set. The next day, Precious walked into Ngozi's room, smiling sweetly. "Sister, will you follow me to visit a friend of mine?" she asked. Ngozi blinked in surprise. For years, Precious barely spoke to her. Now she was calling her sister? Her heart warmed. "Maybe she's finally beginning to accept me," she thought. Without asking questions, she changed her clothes and followed Precious. But she had no idea that she was walking into a lion's den. The house belonged to Ike Precious' street boy boyfriend. He was notorious in the village. Already, Precious had told him what to do. Ike and 4 of his rough friends waited silently in the inner room. When they arrived, Precious told Ngozi to relax. "I'll just go outside to urinate," she lied. As soon as the door closed behind her, the unimaginable happened. Ngozi screamed. She fought. She begged. "Please, stop! Somebody help me!" But no one came. After they had finished their evil act, they tossed her out like trash, battered, broken, and bleeding. She staggered back to her father's compound, trembling with pain. Oluchi and Precious were waiting outside, grinning like satisfied demons. "You should have known better," Oluchi whispered with a wicked smirk. Ngozi couldn't even cry. She walked inside, shut the door, and collapsed. That night, her pillow soaked in tears. "Who would believe me?" she whispered to the dark. Her innocence, her purity was stolen. And with it, the light in her eyes began to fade. But somewhere deep inside her, a fire had started to burn. A fire that even the wicked would come to fear. My wonderful viewers, before we dive back into the story, if you're enjoying this story, please show some love, hit that like button. And tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, yes, you. Because every click, every comment, every subscription keeps this story fire burning. Now, let's return to the story. The long-awaited day came. The palace courtyard was filled with guests. royal guards, and village elders. The great trumpet sounded as Prince Ebuka walked out with confidence and said, "Father, Mother, I have found her, the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with. Her name is Ngozi." The king and queen welcomed Ngozi with warmth and smiles. But tradition could not be ignored. As custom demanded, a doctor was invited to confirm Ngozi's innocence purity was a royal requirement for marriage. After some time, the doctor returned to the king's chamber. He bowed, his voice low and sorrowful. "Your Majesty, the hyme is broken. She has eaten the forbidden fruit." "What?" the king roared. "Impossible! She cannot be your wife, my son. Guards, remove that girl and her wicked stepmother from my sight now." Prince Ebuka's face sank in sorrow. Shame and disappointment swallowed the palace air. He said nothing, only walked away, heartbroken. The next day, he travelled back to the city, needing time and space to heal. Back in Mr. Okoro's compound, the atmosphere was heavy. Ngozi sat on the cold floor of her room crying, broken, humiliated. Villagers mocked her. Everywhere she went, cruel whispers followed. So the royal bride wasn't so royal after all. But her father, Mr. Okoro, despite the pain in his heart, pulled her close and said, "Don't worry, my daughter. All is well. Let them talk." Meanwhile, Precious and Oluchi laughed and celebrated their wicked victory. They didn't stop at gossip. They made sure everyone in the village heard the worst of the rumors. Eventually, Ngozi could take no more. One morning, she packed her belongings, fell on her knees before her father and said, "Papa, let me go and start a new life." And so she left for the city. There, fate gave her another chance. She met Anthony, a kind, responsible young man. For 2 years they dated, and finally she brought him home to meet her father. The traditional wedding was beautiful. But far away in Mr. Okoro's compound, Precious had become a shadow of herself, a single mother with 2 boys, not knowing who their fathers were. The villagers now knew her for what she was, a wild spirit, chasing men, even married ones. After the wedding, a strange thing happened. Oluchi called Ngozi privately. She took her into a quiet room, dropped to her knees, and began to cry. "Ngozi, my daughter, I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I beg you, please, forgive me. Life has punished me and your sister enough. Please take Precious with you to the city. She's wasting away here. Just as I helped you when you were little, I beg you now help her." Her tears touched Ngozi's heart. Out of love for God and her father, Ngozi agreed, but told Oluchi she would speak to Anthony first. When she told Anthony, he paused, then said gently, "If taking her will give you peace, then let's do it." And so, Precious left her children with Oluchi and followed Ngozi and Anthony to the city. At first, everything seemed perfect. Peace filled the house. Everyone was happy. But darkness cannot hide for long. One day, while Ngozi was out at the market, Anthony was home alone. Precious, dressed in a short gown, walked into the sitting room, smiling. She seduced him, touched him, whispered soft lies. Anthony stood up in anger and shouted, "Have you lost your mind? I am your sister's husband." He stormed out of the house, furious. When Ngozi returned, she met Precious crying bitterly. "What happened?" Through fake tears, she replied, "Your husband, he tried to force himself on me." Ngozi stood in silence. Then she laughed. a bitter, knowing laugh. "You think I don't know you? You liar! You serpent! You haven't changed." When Anthony returned, he told Ngozi everything. "Jesus Christ," Ngozi whispered. "The devil can never repent." She threw Precious out of her house that same day. Back in the village, Precious arrived carrying her bags. Oluchi and her grandsons were sitting outside, drinking Gary. Before Precious could even reach them, Oluchi stood up with fear and excitement. "Did you do it? Hope you weren't caught? Baba warned us we must not be caught. Ooh!" Precious smiled slowly and dropped her bag on the ground. "Mission 1 accomplished. I have their pants and boxes right in this bag." Oluchi let out a wicked laugh and began to dance like a mad woman. "Ha ha! Aha! The gods will be pleased with us. We have what we need." But little did they know, a dark spiritual consequence had already been set in motion. Later that evening, under the heavy darkness of the forest path, Oluchi and Precious made their way to the hut of a man feared by all, a wicked herbalist known across villages for his evil powers and cruel dealings. When they arrived, the smell of burning bones and red powder filled the air. "Greetings, Great One," Oluchi said, kneeling with joy in her heart. "We brought their underwears as you requested." The herbalist squinted his bloodshot eyes, then stared deep into the soul of the two women. "You and your daughter are desperate," he said in a cold voice. "How did you get these? And why do you seek to destroy the innocent? That girl and her husband have done you no harm." Shame fell like a shadow on their faces. For the first time, Oluchi and Precious bowed their heads and said nothing. But it was too late to stop. The herbalist picked up the underwears, wrapped them in a black cloth, and placed a small dirty doll baby on top. He began chanting. The fire in the corner flared. Then he stopped. "From this moment," he declared, "every child born to Ngozi and Anthony shall bring sorrow, pain, and destruction. They will spend all their money on the child and still lose everything, even their own lives." Precious grinned. Oluchi sighed in relief. But the herbalist wasn't done. He turned to Oluchi and said, "For the final sacrifice, bring me a cloth worn by the child. Then the spell will be complete." Oluchi and Precious left the hut that night, satisfied yet anxious. From that day, Oluchi began spying on Ngozi. She called constantly, trying to find out if Ngozi was pregnant, and soon her wicked wishes were fulfilled. Ngozi became pregnant. At 6 months, she and Anthony travelled to the village to visit her father. As they arrived, Oluchi's eyes lit up with fake joy. "Ngozi, my daughter," she shouted. "I'm so happy for you. Please, when you put to bed, let me come for a mugwo. I want to help." Ngozi smiled politely, but she remembered everything. Still, she nodded gently. From then on, Oluchi began calling every week. "Have you delivered yet? How is baby? Should I start coming?" Ngozi stopped answering the calls, but one day, Anthony picked up. "Mama, you called at the right time," he said. "My wife just delivered. It's a bouncing baby girl. Mother and child are doing great." "Thank God, ooh!" Oluchi shouted with fake excitement. "So when should I come for a mugwo?" "Even today, safe. I'm ready." Anthony chuckled and said, "No need, Mama. We already have a caregiver helping out. When the time is right, we'll bring the baby to see you." The call ended, and with that, Oluchi's heart sank. "How will I get the baby's cloth now?" she muttered to herself. That night, She didn't sleep. She rolled and turned on her mat, thinking, planning, until the devil dropped an idea. By morning, she turned to Precious and said, "Do you still remember the address of Ngozi's house?" "Of course," Precious answered. A week later, Oluchi journeyed to the city. She lodged in a small cheap hotel not far from Ngozi's street. For days, she studied the movement in the compound, waiting for the perfect time. Then, one quiet afternoon, her wicked plan began. Ngozi had just washed her baby's clothes and spread them out to dry in the compound. The sun was hot. Other tenants had gone to work. The compound was silent. The gate was open. Like a thief, Oluchi crept in, pretending to be a visitor looking for someone. She spotted the baby clothes on the line. She looked left, looked right, and in one swift move plucked a tiny pink gown from the line, rolled it in her bag, and rushed out. By evening, Anthony helped Ngozi pack the baby's clothes inside. Neither of them noticed that one piece was missing. Back in the village, Oluchi returned to the herbalist. She handed him the baby's cloth. The old man's eyes glowed red as he touched it. He placed it in a pot filled with ashes and blood. His chants became wild and violent. "Now it is complete," he said. "This child shall carry the curse. Pain shall follow her like a shadow. Her beauty will be sorrow. Her presence will bring tears. And as long as she breathes, her parents will know no peace." Oluchi and Precious smiled, but little did they know, they had just invited something darker than they ever imagined into their own bloodline. Back in the city, that night, while the moon hid behind the clouds, Ngozi and Anthony sat helplessly on the bed, rocking their newborn child, Angel. Angel wouldn't stop crying. Her cry wasn't the usual hunger cry. No, it was deeper. It sounded like pain. Every night, as the world slept, Angel screamed hours and hours of unstoppable, piercing cries. Ngozi's heart shattered. She held her baby close and whispered prayers, but nothing worked. Then one night, she decided to check Angel's body. As she slowly unwrapped the cloth, her eyes widened in fear. There, at the baby's back, were red rashes, small like mosquito bites. But within days, they began to spread from her back to her chest to her arms and legs. The rashes became itchy, hot, and swollen. Angel couldn't sleep day or night. All she did was cry and cry and cry. Desperate and afraid, Ngozi and Anthony rushed her to the hospital. They ran countless tests: blood, skin, injections, scans. But the doctors found nothing. Absolutely nothing. "We've never seen a case like this," one doctor said. "She's healthy, yet she's not." Each passing day, the rashes turned into boils. Big, red, painful boils that covered every inch of Angel's delicate skin. Ngozi and Anthony bought every medicine they could find. They changed hospitals, changed doctors, prayed, fasted. In time, they dedicated an entire room in their house just to store Angel's used medication boxes. The room was full to the brim with empty cartons from creams to injections to oral drugs. Angel grew up with medicine as her second food. But one thing remained: she never smiled. Not once. Her eyes always looked tired. Her face always wore sadness. Even as she grew into a teenager, the boils still remained. She covered herself every time she stepped out long sleeves, long skirts, gloves, turtlenecks. Her clothes became her armor. And her makeup? A thick layer of foundation to hide the scars on her face. She lived like this for years, until one day a different invitation came. It was the annual Church Youth Week celebration. Youths from different branches were gathering for 1 week, a retreat filled with prayers, fun, worship, and activities. Angel didn't want to go. "Mummy, I can't," she said. "What if they see my skin? What if they avoid me? I can't face that shame." But Ngozi gently held her hand and said, "My daughter, you've been hiding all your life. You serve a living God. Go and participate in His house. Who knows, that might be where your healing will come from." Angel paused. She looked at her mother's teary eyes and said, "Okay, I'll go." She packed a few things and headed off. The church was lively. The youths were excited. Everyone smiled, laughed, sang, except Angel, who stayed quiet and hidden in her oversized hoodie. At night, they were all assigned dormitories. The other girls chatted and prepared for bed. But Angel couldn't undress in front of anyone. She waited, until everyone had gone out the next morning. Then quietly, she unzipped her hoodie, tied a towel, and hurried toward the bathroom. But just as she stepped into the hallway, "Jesus Christ!" one of the girls screamed. Another shouted, "What is this?" They stared at her, skin, red boils, black spots, scars everywhere. They ran out, panicked, and began whispering across the retreat center. "There's a girl with a terrible disease. She's sick. She should be taken away." News reached the pastor. He sent for Angel. With her head bowed in shame, Angel walked into his office, expecting judgment. But the pastor stood up, walked over to her slowly, and said, "My daughter, how long have you carried this pain?" Angel broke into tears. The pastor lifted his hands and prayed. "Holy Ghost fire!" he shouted once, twice, up to 6 times. And something strange happened. Back in the village, in a faraway evil shrine, fire suddenly exploded. The herbalist's hut caught fire from within, with no one around. His drums split, his idols burned, his charms melted like wax. And in Oluchi's compound, Oluchi and Precious suddenly screamed, "Fire! Ooh, fire! It's burning me!" They scratched their skin wildly like invisible ants, and flames were crawling all over them. "We're burning! It's hot!" they screamed, running out of their house, hair scattered, legs bruised. They ran straight into the evil forest, shouting, crying, and scratching. They were never seen again. Back in the city, the pastor called Anthony and Ngozi to the church. He prayed for the entire family. He anointed Angel with holy oil and gave them more to use every night. "This battle is over," he declared. 3 months later, Angel's skin was clear. The boils disappeared. The pain stopped. Her face, now smooth, calm, and beautiful. No one who saw her believed she once lived with such a curse. One Sunday morning, she walked into church wearing a light blue dress and no hoodie. The youth leader walked up to her and said, "Hello, beautiful. How are you today?" And for the first time in 20 years, Angel smiled. That smile lit up the entire room, and from that day, her laughter never stopped. Moral lesson for this story: envy can lead people to commit great evil, but no amount of wickedness can truly destroy a pure heart. Truth and pain may be delayed, but they always cry out for justice. Oh, my name is Catchy. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned 1 or 2 lessons from this story. See you in our next video. Bye for now.